that level. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Your thoughts then, Tamika?
I guess in terms of working with clients, I tend to look at it with them as basic needs, right, that two people enter a relationship with. One of the things I think that I like about what Gary Chapman says, or the way that he puts it, is that it's almost like, in terms of talking about a love relationship. So in terms of your partner, then it's about you know, really being willing to learn a second language, right? That's essentially what you're doing, because it's very rare for two people in a relationship to share. It's not impossible, but it's rare for two people to share that same love language, or that same love need. And I think that without having the discussion about needs, and what they are, and what your primary, right? Because I mean, essentially, those 5 needs we all have to some degree, varying degrees. Some people are 0% on some of them, right? But you have but it's essentially we all have a primary love language or love need. And I think it's about two people working on knowing what their partners are, and then looking, and it's that thing of being able to recognize, because often what I certainly find in terms of the couples that come to me, a lot of their complaints is, you know, their partner's not doing this in this way, and this is what I would do. Yes, because that's your default, but it's not their default. And so I talk to them a lot about the lens, right, that they're looking through. You're looking through the lens of your own default position. So it's going to take an adjustment to come over here. So in that way, it's the same thing in terms of those love needs and what have you. It's not your default. Their primary love need may not be your default, but it is going to take an adjustment. And that comes down to choice. Because once you know, I always say, once you know what you know, you can't unknow what you know. Right? So once you become aware of your partner's primary love language, and it's a choice as to whether or not you are going to commit to learning a second language, in order to, another thing Gary Chapman talks about is that essentially we all have these internal love tanks. And if that primary love need is not being met, we're running on empty. Right? So then when I make a commitment then to learn the love need of my partner, I'm essentially saying that I'm wanting to keep your love tank full or filled, right? But it's a choice at the end of the day is where we go with that. So yes, it was, I just wanted to hear your thoughts.
I think that's essentially what it has to be in terms of relationship. And then, but my concern then, or maybe not concern, I think what I'm seeing then is that some persons, as you said, are not necessarily able or willing to learn that new language. And that's where the relationships break down. Yeah. Because if that's the essential, you're going by Chapman, if that's the essential element of, compatibility and relationships working and what have you, you're not prepared. It's like going to another country, they don't speak your language and you're refusing to speak their language. Exactly. How are we going to do this? How are we going to do this?
Absolutely.
Right. You're going to end up starving, you're going to end up, whatever.
Sure.
And so I think not enough perhaps is not enough focus then. The emphasis, I remember my pastor said to me in the UK talking about marriage. And he said that people go into marriage thinking it's to benefit them, but marriage should be about benefiting the other person. So if you're thinking about doing and serving for your spouse, and they're thinking about serving you, everybody's happy.
Right.
But when you think about just serving yourself, and they're just thinking self, well, how are we going to do this? So again, about that language, if you don't know how to communicate or to love your partner, there's going to be breakdown in that service.
Sure.
So I think love languages are important.
It is, but one of the questions that will come to mind is how can we determine that a person is genuinely willing to learn in your love language? Because it's one thing when they're trying to get your attention, say, yes, I will do so and so, but can they do it? They can't keep up with it. Have you recognized a trend to decipher what kind of person, if they're willing to go that way?
Well, I think I'm not sure that you can commit to meeting a person's love need without having committed to whether that is now. So we're not just dating now, but we're not just getting to know one another now, but we're actually saying that we are pursuing a relationship, right?
Okay.
And so I think it takes that. I wouldn't necessarily say that during the getting to know period that there's going to be necessarily a commitment, because you're still finding things out about each other, essentially. But I think that once the two of you have made that commitment that you want to take this forward, you know, it will, I don't think it's something you can ignore, right? And so if it's a need that's not being met through your dating, courtship, whatever you want to refer to it as, and it's something that you have addressed, and it's not really going anywhere, I always say, then, you know, you're at the point where you have to make a decision as to whether or not this is something that you are willing to live with or not.
Sure. I think, I'm sorry that the person who gave this question wasn't here to hear that response, because that response would be the answer to their question. Which is why when you're seeing someone for months, you don't know where you stand with that man and what he wants long term, because you've not had that discussion. You've not, you know, you're not.
You've got to communicate.
Communicate, exactly.
Yeah.
And you've got to, as you said, you've got to get to a point where you are honest with yourself and the person say, look, clearly we're on different paths here. You want something different. I want this, and what have you. And so you're not willing to commit, which is what you're asking, or even to try or to learn. And so therefore this has to stop here. You know, you've got to move it along. Exactly. And I think sometimes some women, particularly if they get to probably a certain age or what have you, they're frightened to put that block, that stop. Right. Oh, but then what happens? You know, if I say no here, am I going to meet anybody else? And you know, and all of that. And again, it goes back to what we said at the beginning about knowing self. You know what your value, you know what your worth is. You know what God sent for you, what God's told you, the blessings. Absolutely. Right. You're blocking traffic. You're actually blocking traffic, but clearly you're not the one. So, you know, let's kind of let it flow. Right, you let it flow. So
sure. Again, apart from knowing who you are, then you have to be confident now to follow through with what you know about yourself.
Right. Absolutely. And I think on the other side of that, you know, you can be seeing something, you know, you're getting to know someone. There's no, this is not a ring on the finger. I think we need to be very clear. I think sometimes that and I don't so like to generalize, but sometimes we it's necessary. Sometimes
let's get a point.
Sometimes, you know, but sometimes as women, we can be too quick just in that getting to know period of you've already tried on a surname, you've already tried it. No, baby, we're just getting to know, you know. I think the greatest advice in terms of even my friends and what have you, where, you know, we've spoken and what have you, my thing is that seek friendship is what you need to be doing, as opposed to, because we know that as women, right, that we engage our emotions a lot quicker. And so sometimes it's about, well, protect your heart. You know, you can do that by seeking friendship. I don't think that there's any greater foundation than first being friends with someone. And if you're coming from it, you know, at that vantage point, right, then that can only make things in more of a bit of a positive light. So even if you find it's not this person, it's okay. But what do you lose from that? I think the issue that we have often is because we engage our emotions so quickly and we've kind of run ahead a lot of the times. I think that tends to be why we get ourselves into problems. And so when we get to the point of, you know, seeing someone, getting to know them and what have you, and you realize that yeah, not really for me, or it might be that you thought there could be something in it, but they don't see that, and we take that very, very personally, as opposed to, no, that's okay.
That's just
You know,
like,
you're all you're doing is getting to know someone. It's okay. It's not anything. We don't need to you know, see people as or in any particular way just because, you know, things haven't progress the way that we thought it had. I think sometimes we've got to be able to give ourselves time and have that respect also, you know, for ourselves. One of the things I always say, you know, Cole knows this about me, you know, my time and my space is sacred. And so if I choose to spend time with you, you know, but if I choose to spend time with you and what have you, even that I'm placing value, you know, on that. There's a level of commitment that I'm even making in that. But I, you know, it's that thing of walking into, particularly, we're talking about love relationships, so let's stay with that. But particularly, you know, walking into something like that, you have to go into that with, you know, a level of, what's the worst that can happen here? Well,
okay,
I think you're okay. You think I'm okay.
let's see.
You're not my cup of tea. I'm not yours. You know, or we're just friends. What is the? I think we put too much pressure on ourselves. I think is what I'm saying.
And that goes into the other question that was given.
Oh Lord.
No, but I know before we go on to that, as you were saying, is, in other words, at this stage, you're not taking it that serious. You're just getting to know. You can be friends. So the question is always, let's say you're a young lady and there are 3 guys, they're sending you information and they're all interested in you or in a relationship. How you manage that? Because remember, it's your time and it's your space. Do you entertain all 3 in the early stages? How do you approach that?
Okay, so for me personally, and I have nothing against people that do this, that date more than one person at a time and what have you. But for me personally, that's not me. That's I believe that God only wants the best for me and only has the best for me. And so I am very, very confident in the fact that he will therefore lead me to the right one. So for me, I think I'm too concerned and place too much value on people's emotions, and I personally, I just would not want to be in something or a part of something where someone's particularly feeling me in a certain type of way and I'm not really there because I'm over here. So I don't do it. I've never done that. So I can't speak to that because that's just not me. I you know, that's not me making any judgment on anyone who, you know, dates multiple people or what have you. It's just not for me. I don't know how they do it personally, in terms of all that, because then I maybe the one thing that I will say with that is that for me, then that brings the question to mind: do you really know what you want? That's what comes to mind.
Correct. I think you hit it on the head there,
because the still going back to that same question about modern dating methods. It's become more common, I would observe, I should say, that because of, for example, the rise in online dating, for example, right? So we're not doing the whole meet one person, going on a date, see how that goes. You know, there's people that are online and speaking to multiple people. So they be on a dating website and maybe talking to multiple persons before they meet them in person. So I guess for some people, they're maybe not actively dating? I guess maybe it's about what we class as dating. Is it dating when you're just talking to different people? Is that dating?
Mhm.
Or is it when you've made a particular connection with somebody and you're getting to know and you're following through with that? And I think that's where the modern dating has kind of changed a little bit, because the dynamics with the online, because you could potentially be speaking to 3 or 4 different people.
Yeah.
Not necessarily dating per se, but you are getting to know multiple people at one time.
Yeah.
So I think that's added a new dynamic to dating. But I think you're talking about the traditional way of courting, as our parents would use the word courting.
Yeah, well, I think the difference between, I think all of what you've said is dating, right? I think courtship is when you are, you know, your end result is expected to be married, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not, it's for courtship is more, that's intentional. You're if you like dating with a purpose.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
What courtship is.
Yeah.
But if you're just in that stage of kind of getting to know each other, those conversations haven't taken place yet in terms of, you know, what you're both wanting at the end of this, then you're dating. But if you've had those conversations and, you know, ultimately what the two of you are wanting at the end of this is marriage, then you are in a courtship. And that's to me, that's the difference.
And that's what I think we have to establish as well. And I think that goes back to your point about women falling in too quickly, because we're all, you know, said going about surname, we're all down the courtship line, what the colours we have and how the church is going to look, and you know, and I've spoken to them, I'm like, whoa, you've only had 2 dates with me. You know, see how this goes. That's your intention, and potentially he may be that person that you will end up with. Right. But right now, I'm not sure you have enough information to make that decision.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that, you know, not to say, you know, that's not to say that you can't meet someone, right, and have an immediate connection.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So I'm Christian, so I can only speak from that, right? Yeah. So for me, at that point, if you feel like that, oh, okay, there's some, and it's early and what have you, for me, you got to take that in prayer.
Yeah, well, still got to take it.
That's where you got to go with that. Is okay, let me take that in. Let me give you this, God, okay? Because I don't want to be running ahead of myself and what have you. But because I know, you know, my tendency as a woman, I don't want to be blinded by feeling. So you, God, show me what I'm not going to see because of all these feelings.
Yeah,
true. That's where you got to go with it, right? And that's if you are serious about wanting a life partner, wanting the person that God has for you, wanting to be married, then these are the steps that you take. If it's not that big of a deal for you, we'll just keep going around in circles, really, I guess, you know. And
you mentioned something there about life partner, about God's will having a life partner. You know, it is sometimes when we're waiting a long time on the Lord. Yes. In the early stages, we might have a long list. As time goes by, it either chop it down to what's really essential. Now, how does one know or have a good feeling or understanding that you have chosen, or the person that is coming to you is really a life partner, not a life threat or in disguise or something like that? Yes, you will going to come to you, but how can we, you know, understand whether you have someone who is a life partner?
Well, I think that the first and maybe only answer to that is, what is God saying to you?
You need to come in.
What has God said to you? You know, for me, I think in any situation, and that's not to be deep. That's just that's our lifestyle, right? This is how we live our lives. We take everything else to God. We'd ask him about everything. So why not something as significant as to possibly being with someone for the rest of your life? I'm not going to take that to God and hear, but the thing is that we have to be willing to hear the answer.
So that was going to be my
and
point.
to accept the
That
answer.
was-
That's what we have. That's a lot of the problem. A lot of the time is that God is very clear with us, but again, here we go with these feelings and emotions and what, and all of a sudden we think that God don't really know.
Yeah.
So and you know, you might have got it wrong a bit.
Yeah.
You know, and so we tend to kind of go off in our own way, but you've got to be, regardless, yes, he could be a nice guy, yes, she can be the most loveliest woman and what have you, but the fact of the matter is that person for you? For me, marriage isn't just about two people getting together. If that was the case, I would have been married a long time ago, right? That's not what it is. For me, it's about purpose, it's about destiny, it's about ministry, right? And so in terms of that, oh God, I'd rather, rather, because for me, I don't, divorce is not an option as far as I am concerned, right? And so if it means that in terms of who that person is, that's going to take a bit more time, and even in terms of time, whose time are we on? Who would, you know, I'm not really one for us, you know, putting ourselves up against other people and what have you. It's really, really funny. Just a few hours ago, my mother was playing something, and this I don't know if it was a commercial or something came on, and they were talking about this lady in Africa that's just got engaged and how happy they were for her and what have you. And they were saying, you know, because everyone thought that she wouldn't get married, you know, because, you know, her age that she had come to, you know, she's over 30 and she's now 32. I said, what? But it was a real, my mum was in hysterics, but I was like, are they serious? You know? So, you know, I say that to say, I don't think we should hold ourselves up against other people and other people's standards in terms of time. We don't know, you know, for those of us that are still single and what have you, we don't, sometimes, you know, you may not fully understand, okay, God, well, how come it didn't happen for me in my 20s or 30s or 40s or whatever that may be. But when you know, right, that your life is fully in his hands, you have to trust that nothing before its time, nothing before its time. And for me, I hold on to, listen, at the time that comes for me, I know Bible says he will restore the years.
Yes.
Right. And so that's where I am with that.
Right.
Well, I got married at 41, so I must have been some old hen.
Old.
Real old.
You know what? But you know, this saying is better you wait long than
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think sometimes we have to remember that and give God thanks for the things he saved us from.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Things that he saved us from. When I think about it, I'm just like, oh Jesus, I love you.
Thank you.
I've had, you know,
absolutely.
I have to give thanks for that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I just think in terms of relationship, there is so much to consider.
Yes.
There is a lot to consider, but I take your point to me, you know, about just placing everything in the hands of the Lord. Take that burden off of you and place it on him. You know, it's easy to kind of we talk big and all that, but at the time I know it's challenging, it's tough, it's hard.
Yeah.
But I guess, you know, that's where, you know, your faith has to really kick in. It has to. And you can't be watching the timelines, as you said. You can't be watching everybody else. You can't be watching social media. You can't be watching friends and family. Or they get because you really don't know their story.
Right.
Everyone's on their own time, whatever God has
absolutely
put them on. And it's, you know, we have to try and remember that in those valley times.
Yes,
you know, definitely. Absolutely.
You raised a very important point in terms of having a partner with whom you can do ministry with. And here is where, because it's something that I believe in. I guess watching my parents, but then how do we approach it? The person may not be in ministry per se. Would it be good enough if they're supportive of what you do? From your counseling, how that
absolutely. So for me, when I say, you know, I think the office of marriage is a ministry within itself, right? So but in terms of, you know, you as individuals, you may have two separate, we all have a ministry, we all have something that we are called to, we all have something that we are called to serve in, right? That is our ministry.
Right.
And so what I mean in terms of that is that, you know, you're with someone that will support you in what God has called you to do, right? Essentially, you need to, we need to be careful that we are not getting with people that are leading us away from God.
Right.
That person ain't leading you, it's not leading you further to Christ. That's, well, what they call it, they call that red flag, right? We need to we need to pay attention. You know, absolutely, we need to pay attention to that. So for me, it's about, you know, having that partner that is your covering in terms of what it is that you've been called to do. That's, you know, that's, well, I couldn't imagine being with someone that, you know, I couldn't imagine being with someone that didn't support like what it is that God has called you to do. I mean, what kind of warfare would that be in the house? Like, that's, you know, so even all of that, you know, we've got to take into consideration. And you mentioned earlier about, you know, the lists and what have you, and I mean, even some of that I think we need to look at, right? Because I think we need to be I think we need to be realistic, right? I'm not saying that you should, I think absolutely we ought to have standards. And I don't absolutely, and I don't think that those things should be compromised, but I think that, you know, we need to be open at the end of the day, and being open does not mean settling, right? But we need to be open to maybe something that we thought for whatever reason we would not consider, but God is saying this is it. Well, you got to be open or not. That's where I don't think that we should be so rigid in terms of what we are asking. And again, I'm saying in terms of standards, absolutely that must be maintained. I don't think that those are things that should be compromised, but we must be realistic in terms of what we are wanting. We're hearing a lot lately about these high value men and high value women, and you know, and which to me, I'm like, yeah, what's happening? What's happening? Because for a lot of women that are wanting a high value man, okay, well, if you believe in that stuff, cool. But would you then say you are a high value woman? And if you are not, I don't understand your expectation for that in a man.
Exactly.
Where's the balance with that, right? And vice versa. Even in terms of the man, what in a high value woman, and what, sir, are you a high value man? Whatever that is.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask. What is the value? What's this high value? What do you know? And everyone's value base is different. You know, and that's a challenge also. And do you and that same values that you are looking for, do you have them?
Well, that my understanding of. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say my understanding of that terminology, this high value terminology, is about the person earning six figures. Yeah, that's my understanding of what that is.
Things financially,
all
this, his own car,
but they earn six figures. Is that's a high value man, a high value woman.
Excuse my naivety. I'm just like,
you're not out there. That's why.
Yeah,
you're happily strong now.
Even.
Breathe, Cole. Breathe. Brother, please. Brother.
That's the only value. Like, that's it.
that's what the terminology refers to.
Oh, right, okay, so when they
When you
talk
talk about a high value woman and or a high value man,
so
that
at
is my
least 6
understanding
figures.
of.
And is
Yeah.
there anything else
Yeah.
under the 6 figures, or is that just, that's
Well,
just it?
the focus
So
is
The
the
focus is that.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
you gotta have it going on.
That's why
Yeah.
we're struggling. That's why we're
Yeah.
struggling.
Yeah, and you find out, especially with women who are educated and they're
Mm.
up there in this, status and what's not, they're looking for that kind of feedback. Or that's their choice.
Yeah.
Personal choice. That's valid reasons. But then you have to be, what's the word? You have to, should I say realistic? I'm not sure that's a good word, but then you have to be fair, because you might go looking for someone who might be like you, but the person might be called in another area and their qualification might be just different from yours. They may not have
Absolutely.
a master's, but they master what they do.
Mm.
Yeah.
And once they're
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
that's where they get mixed up. You're looking for someone who's happy and love what they are doing,
Yes.
as opposed to someone who just did a master's for master's sake and existent
Mm.
and
Yeah.
miserable.
Yeah.
All of
Yeah.
this, it's crazy
Yeah.
out there, though.
Yeah.
Really stunned by that.
Well, yeah, it's not like, and someone tell you it's not about character.
Well, this is my, I mean, I understand, don't get me wrong, I understand that you
Mhm.
want someone who's gonna compliment.
Compliment.
Not
Yeah, yeah.
complete, but compliment you.
Compliment.
So
Yeah.
you want who maybe has, it's maybe the same level or same understanding of the education level that you've attained, or, so you can have that dialogue and those conversations.
Sure.
Someone who's walking in the Lord,
Mhm.
all these kind of things, but just to kind of really focus just on them out. So what
That's it.
happens when that person loses that income? They're no longer of value,
No,
That's
and
right.
because
they
that's
leave the
what,
equation.
that's, and then the whole love language thing goes out the window. Everything else goes out the window. Everything
Everything
else.
else.
I don't think that the love language thing is included in that.
Well,
That's
that's
what's
what I'm saying.
Because
Definitely.
I remember seeing some YouTube thing with Steve Harvey, where this guy, he was high, as it were,
Mhm.
and he was married to this woman. Then, he got sick and then he lost his job and then
Right.
all of that, and she told him bye-bye.
And unfortunately,
if you-
there are
if you-
just.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, so if you go for the wrong reason and whatever is the glue that's supposed to be holding the relationship, if that is missing,
Yes.
you're in big problems. That's why you should know who you are, walk into the relationship happy and, comfortable and confident about yourself, not
Sure.
waiting for the person to make you feel happy. So
Sure.
when he has a bad day, what I mean, marriage over, things going sour, what, but it's more like a business arrangement I hear going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You had a point
Yeah.
to me, you were going to say?
No. I was just gonna say that I don't know if you guys are familiar with Kevin Samuels. He passed
Yes, from Africa.
just a couple of months ago from America. So he was someone that was very much on this high value thing and what have you, and
Okay.
had a program where he'd have women come on, and
Mhm.
to me he would devalue them. I watched.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, he passed away. Yeah,
Recent.
yeah. He passed away. He was found dead.
A
in,
few months ago.
Yeah, he was found dead.
Yeah.
About a month or so.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 months.
He used to have
Yeah.
like a podcast kind of thing with women, and he used to speak to the women.
Yes, and
Down to
That's right.
very rude. Very rude. Because what he was presenting was this whole, well, he's a high value man, but basically women would come on there. He'd ask them questions about how much they earn. He'd ask them to rate themselves in terms of their looks. And then basically tell them you could never get a high value man. What are you wasting? What are you doing?
Yeah.
But of course he passed, and the way that he was found, and obviously what's come out from that is that maybe he was kind of living this double life, that he actually wasn't who he was presenting and what have you, because of where he was found, basically.
Wow.
And so, but there's so many people that kind of ascribe to this thing, and I've been seeing even on IG recently, just different, and particularly young Black women. I get concerned by young Black women and their values. And there was a recent thing on IG where this young woman just turned 18. Her partner took her out for a meal. And there was this whole video that went viral because she was literally cursing him out that he did not pay for her friend's meal. She invited 18 people to the meal.
I heard about that. Heard about that.
18 friends to the meal, and she went off at him. He's a basically useless man, and this one and that.
Oh my God.
I get concerned. Young Black women that think this is it. You just want people to, and surely that should have been a conversation prior to the meal. Like, how did that? And why are all 18 of your friends expecting to have a free meal? Why can't they pay for their meal? Number one.
That says a lot about the friends too.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
come, he's paying.
Yeah. But
even when you get there, you'd say, okay, don't worry about it. I'll pay for mine.
Oh no, they were right. They were behind her. They were right in it. He's trifling. He's this. No, ma'am, you are looking very silly on camera. How about that? How about that?
The challenge is, or what's even more scary is that there's a lot of women out there that would agree with her.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yes. Oh yes.
And anybody who would say that she's incorrect or should have a different approach would be seen as, in the wrong. Because of the way society is currently, So I mean, how does that fit with the biblical context of, like, because the Bible talks about men being providers and so on and so forth. And I think people have taken that and just gone and
false balance.
Balance, run off and gone with the wind with it. And then you have obviously the Proverbs 31 woman, and you have all of that of what a woman's supposed to be and what have you. We don't do the whole, I personally speak for myself, don't have to do this whole strong Black woman trope, but it's another discussion for another time. But, so how do we manage this? Because all of us have ministries where we're dealing with people, we're dealing with young people, particularly young women.
Yeah.
How do we navigate this?
I don't know, boy. To me, anytime I hear anything on the extreme, I remember that scripture about false balance. And I'm trying to remember what it says. The false balance is an abomination. But a just balance
is his delight.
It's his delight. So it's a matter of you finding balance. I mean, coming back to that same scenario, having a conscience. If he invites you out, you go alone, get to know the person. It's not a business deal. You're not trying to show off, oh, I have a partner or somebody who can take care of all of this. Balance would be there. You discuss who's going to be paying for the meal, whatever, and you deal with that. Yeah, absolutely. Going all out of that, way out of whack, and then finding balance where you want someone who is capable of earning. You understand? You don't want to be the one earning everything and always taking up always paying the bill. Sure. You have that understanding going on between each other. If you were taking me out, well, I prefer go just have a biscuit and a soft drink than just going to a hotel or whatever, and then be forever paying. Because I prefer that he learns to accept his role. That's right. Let him learn to accept his role until, well, you have to know the person, that his mindset that he's supposed to be doing certain things, so that you need the biscuit until you can afford the whatever.
Sure.
You understand?
Sure.
But the occasional time I will pay your birthday or something special, or you just saying thank you. But it's trying to find that balance in there.
Absolutely. I think biblically, right? It's very clear that the man is the provider. However, I speak for me. I think everything is a conversation, right? And so for me, I am not opposed to in having a discussion that I've come alongside to help. Correct. Not to do, to help. There's a whole difference there for me, and it might simply be, I don't know, between the two of you in terms of coming together, you have agreed that he will do the mortgage and this and that and what have you, and I don't know, you do one thing or whatever it is, but the two of you must agree.
Agree.
Do you understand what I'm saying? But it's essentially, I'm not with this thing of, well, you're not working, you're not bringing anything to the table, you're not, you know, and also, you know, I suppose it's that thinking about that a lot of time now, and probably more recently or what have you, that sometimes it's the women that earns more than the man. And so, you know, it's about within that, him being secure in that, and also the woman not allowing him to feel less than because of that.
Yeah.
Right. So everything is a conversation, I think, in terms of that. But ultimately, I'm very clear on the fact that it is the man that is the provider. But I'm not so sure that, you know, we should be so rigid in, well, but what's mine is mine as the woman, and I'm not helping. I can see you struggling. I don't even think that's love. I don't even think that's. I just, for me, that's for me. I'm not, you know, I put nothing on anyone else, but personally, I feel like, this is a partnership, right? But you have to agree how that partnership financially is going to work. And sometimes it means, you know, even though the man is the provider, actually in terms of organization and structure and stuff like that and what have you, the woman's a little bit better at that. So actually she manages all of that. Again, it comes down to conversation. But I do think, you know, there is something there in I would refer to myself as a very independent woman. And I've learned, because I'm used to taking care of myself. I'm used to providing for myself and what have you. But I've learned in relationships, sometimes I've got to step back, because I'm not, it's not a conscious thing that I'm like, I'm an independent woman, so I take care of myself and what. No, it's just I'm just used to it, right? But in terms of having conversation and how, you know, that can make a partner feel and what have you, wasn't even something that I thought about, but got it. You know, I completely understood. So okay, all right, I can step back and okay, and so I'm not so quick to pull out my card or pull out cash or what have you, and cool. Because I'm not trying to take anything away from you as a man. So there's so even from that point of view, sometimes it's about letting that man take care of you.
And that final question was about gender roles. Some of it just put gender roles as a topic to discuss. And I think we kind of segued into it quite nicely in terms of gender, because just picking up on your point about you know, well, the points we made about men being providers and so on, but then the point you made to me about some women now financially are earning more than men. Excuse me. So how does that can readjust the balance quite dramatically in terms of providing and how we can provide and what have you. But like you said, Tammy, it's about that having that conversation. Okay, so I earn more than you. We're in a relationship. We're in a partnership.
So you're in the relationship.
You're in the relationship.
Courting or marriage?
Oh no, I'm talking about in terms of marriage.
Marriage, that's what I'm talking about.
is where I am.
Yeah, that's we're in marriage.
But then even in courting,
even in courtship though, I would be, if I know that, you know, the finances are different, i.e. I'm earning more, I wouldn't pay all the time, but I would take it in turns, do Dutch, whatever.
Absolutely. I don't think it should be, I don't think the expectation necessarily should be this whole going Dutch and this whole, you know, I don't think the expectation should be that, but I think everything is a conversation. There's someone that I'm dating at the moment and what have you, and from the get-go, he's been like, yeah, I mean, it could, again, it's automatic to me, right? So we went out on our first, when we went on our first date, he said at the end of it, he said to me, give me a minute, because I'm just trying to see if I make payment on the app. So I said, we pay online. He's like, we don't do that. Right. Okay, cool. And even since then, in terms of going out and what have you, I still don't kind of just assume
Right.
that he's going to do and what have you. So I'll find ways
I
of
know.
say, yeah, you know, and you know, so another thing we went to do that had to be, we went to the theatre, and so it had to be booked. And so, you know, I just sent a text, shall I book the best seats available? No, you tell me where you want, where the seat is that you want, and I will book it. Okay. Right. But that's conversation or what have you. But even still, because we are dating, I'm still not assuming and taking for granted.
Correct.
That's going to be. But yeah, certainly but you know, as to what we're talking about in terms of marriage and what have you, I think that there can be more of a partnership. And I think that you know, even in that situation where the woman's earning more and what I mean, what's in your house and what your agreement is what it is. But I think like things like, you know, even going out and what have you, and it might, okay, there might be more money in, you know, that I have or what have you, but it would be decided, like if I was going out or what have you, it's him that would be paying, it's him that would have the cash, it's him that would have the card or what have you to do that. I wouldn't, you know, be trying to make him look anyway. I've been out, you know, with on several times with couples and what have you, and just seen where I'm embarrassed for you, right? I don't like that type of dynamic where there seems to be an issue in terms of finance and what have you. And maybe that even goes into, you know, people have different views when it comes to when you get married. Do we have joint accounts or do we have separate accounts? For me, I'm a joint account, but that's just me. I mean, either way, it has to be a conversation, an agreement that the two of you have ultimately, I think. Yeah.
Communication, back to that point again.
Yeah.
I think just finishing up with that gender role stuff, I think it's something that needs to be discussed, because it's not as clear cut as back in the day when women used to be at home and working. The man got it was all very clean cut. That is not the case. Most women are working, you know, still going out to work, still coming home, still doing some majority, if not all, of the household chores. Again, if that's the discussion you had in your household, and that's absolutely fine, as you said, women, you know, they're better at organizing and doing certain things. Like I said to you, I don't touch my washing machine in my house. It's just one of those things. Do you know what I mean? I will do the cooking, you know, so you have a conversation. I think that's the cue for today. It was really about conversation, having communication. And that has to be done with love and from a place of love, not just harsh, like I've got something to say and I'm going to say it. Humility. You know, kind of.
That's it. Lead with love.
Exactly. She's Mrs. Love, everything.
Yeah.
She's another lovey. She's another love. It's all about love. You know, and rightly so, you know, so that I think has to be the nugget around communication, conversation, learning, languages, all these the list.
That's high on the list.
High on the list,
Definitely.
So the only one thing I had here was that someone had here as they want to talk about finding a good husband. And so we had a bit of a discussion about the word itself, finding, and should the woman be the one finding and looking, and you know, what does the Bible say about husband and wife, and who should be looking, and you know, so it's down to the man supposed to be looking and finding. So what do we tell women, or what do we discuss with women who are out there intentionally looking for a husband? What do they do? Don't ask me, because I didn't go looking. Mine came around me, and so I can't comment. Even though I'm married, I cannot comment about finding.
Well, listen, right? So the word says, right, that he who finds a wife,
that was my argument,
right, finds a good thing. And so, however, I think, you know, I'm a great believer, and my pastor says, you know, all the time and what have you. So I'm a great believer that there's nothing wrong with being a woman who wants a husband. But I don't believe that as a woman, you should be pursuing a man. I believe that men are the hunters, and we should let them hunt.
Yeah.
However, I do think that we
within context.
Yeah.
within context.
Within
However, I do think that we have a responsibility as women in terms of, and I use this term lightly, right? Let's use it within context, that we put ourselves out there. Because I think particularly as Christian women, we think that we just sit in waiting on the Lord. We go from church to work to home, church to work to home, and we be talking about, you know, I'm just waiting on my Boaz. As my pastor says, Boaz ain't coming.
Yes.
Boaz ain't coming. Okay. And so it means that you've got to, you know, do things, you know, go, you know, date yourself. Do you know what I'm saying? Take yourself out, but sometimes we're so, and sometimes that's just part of, you know, the way we've kind of come up in church or what have you. And sometimes we don't really know any better and what have you, but there's nothing wrong with, you know, take yourself out for lunch, go and sit on the beach, go to the park, go to the cinema, go to the, you know, put yourself, visit other churches. Sometimes that's a block within itself. You know, you've only ever been in the assembly that you attend. No. You gotta.
All the men old.
Yeah.
Married.
Oh, there's no men.
You know. Yeah, you've got. It's just not going to. You know, we know the ratio of women to men in most churches and what have you. So, so if you're all sitting looking at the two men, and that's the problem, right? That in terms of, you know, new people that come through the door and what, they don't even get a chance to begin to build their relationship with the Lord, because you've got all these women that are just on you and what have you. They ain't seen no fresh men for the last how many. No, you've got to be able to, you know, put yourself, you know, be social. The Bible says that you should show yourself friendly, right? Show yourself friendly. That is what that is about. And so do things. You must leave your house, get dressed up. Leave your house. You know, it's not, and I know that we can just get into a routine of church, work, home, church, work, home, church, work, home. Before you know it, years have passed and what have you. And you have to ask yourself. You come to the point you ask yourself the question: boy, am I even living? I truly, desperately believe in. Bible talks about the abundant life, and I believe there is an abundant living that we are supposed to live as Christians here on the earth, not in heaven, here. Right? So that means that, you know, we've got to start doing stuff. Come on, launch out, put yourselves in places where you will meet the type of man that you are seeking. So that means there's no point going to, I don't know what like you know, in terms of, I'm trying to think in terms of Barbados or what you would, I don't know, going to a dance or what have you. Well, as Christians, we don't do that. That make no sense, right? In terms of doing that, but you know, be sociable. You know, go out places and be friendly, right? I heard a relationship expert say this not too long ago, that there was a question about what it is, the number one thing that kind of turns men off of women, like why they're not approached and what have you. And he said the number one thing is our facial expression, our look. We're stern, smile, learn, you know. And I get it. I mean, I had to laugh. I really had to laugh, because I think sometimes it's without even consciousness, right? You're not, but we've got to become more aware of ourselves, right? And I'ma just be real. Like, you have to, we've got to take care of ourselves.
It starts there.
That's physically, that's health-wise. And the way that we carry ourselves, we've got, I say all the time about Christians and what have you, and particularly back in the day, and what I,
Yeah.
you know, I see some people, I say, I don't know why would I want to, if you're saying that's what God you know, but you know, now, you know, we've come a long way. Thank you, Jesus. We've come a long way, right? But in all seriousness, we do have to pay attention to these things, how we present ourselves, how we look, our health and what have you. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not, you know, are we even physically able to take on a relationship, and what? These are questions that we need to ask ourselves. Right? We need to, certain things that we need to check out, lifestyle changes and what have you. And I think is, if, you know, that our focus very long, it has been, you know, to be single is almost like some sort of disease. Let me tell you, I fully enjoyed my single life. Fully. I enjoy it fully. Right? Because because the focus is not, and that's not to say I don't want to get married. I absolutely but that's not where my focus is. I've got things to do. So I'm busy doing stuff. Right. And I do think that a lot of the time, it's when you're focused on that, focused on the things that you've got to do and what have you, that's when it is God will cause what I call, you know, those divine connections to just happen.
It's true. It's true. It's
to just happen, because you're not, but if you're forever focused on that, then everything is going to be, is it him, Lord? That's too tiresome.
I love energy.
That's too draining. That's too draining. Just know that, you know, this is something you've given to the Lord. Know that, you know, that God has nothing but the best for us and wants nothing but the best for us. So let's just trust him with that. But the practical things that we can do that. Be prepared. Don't be in a position where he sends you your Boaz and you're not ready. What's the point? What was the point of that?
What's that about?
You know, what's the point? And you're not ready. No, and these are the, you know, we've got to ask ourselves some very real questions. You know, is it that we are in love or caught up with the idea of marriage? Or is it, as I said, that really it's about us, it's about purpose, it's about destiny, it's about ministry.
Exactly.
Right? We've really got to ask ourselves those questions. Are we ready? That's the question. Because sometimes we think you're ready and you're not ready.
And then you get into the relationship, and that's when you realize that you're not ready. And
absolutely.
Then you know, so I agree with you, Tamika. I think a lot of women need to make sure that they are ready. Yeah. Because one of the things is that, like you said, being, you know, particularly for women, society sees women being single some kind of disease, because you know, unfortunately women are validated by having a partner, having children. If you're at a certain age, you don't have one or both. It's like somebody, why you can't keep a man, why are you not married? You know, even though we have moved on, we are still, it's still there. Whether it be in church, whether it be out in the world, wherever. So I think that's why a lot of women are just rushing with as you said, the idea of marriage. I need to validate, you know, I need to have children, time's ticking, so let me just, man, you know, and they're not ready. They're not ready to raise children. They're not ready to be a helpmate to a husband. But yet they have all these expectations, but they're not ready to do it. And we said that in our last one, we said, you know, we're talking about Ruth. Not Ruth. Ruth.
Give me more, my friend, to say. When you talk about
Boaz. She had to be ready. She made herself ready. She went out. She was ready to receive him. And we were saying in our last one, are you ready to do your ruthless? Basically, are you ready to do what is needed to be ruthless? Have you done, you know, what needs to be done? And again, going back to knowing self and all the rest of it. But that's one of the things I think a lot of women I've spoken to, they're not actually ready for marriage. They're not ready to take on what is entailed in being married, because as a man, it's hard work. And it's not hard work. He's not hard work, but just maintaining all the factors to do with marriage, the compromise and the discussions, the conversations, you know, things happen externally that you then have to deal with as a couple that you can expect, and how do you manage that and so on. So you
Exactly.
have to be ready in that mindset that, yeah, you know, you really take your vows that till death do us part. We have to make
Yeah.
that covenant, we have to make that connection, and are you ready for it?
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people have that conversation with themselves, much less they're intended.
Right.
So it's
Sure.
really back to that word again, conversations and communication.
Or
Again,
realistic
Absolutely.
conversation.
realistic, honest.
So you could have conversation, but in conversation is
It's
that
not-
it's thoughts.
Yeah, yeah. Yes.
It's just talk, but it's when the rubber meets the road, that is when you see all the different dynamics that are to be included. Is then like,
Exactly.
Are you
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who's gonna have a point?
no, I was just asking, you know, how persons will know that they're ready, especially one who, like, you know, may have gone through divorce and whatever experience. And yeah, how they would know.
Well, I think it's about, firstly, in terms of a situation like that. So whether it's divorce, or I don't know, a relationship that, you know, relationships that just haven't continued for whatever reason, even if you weren't married. I think a first sign of being ready is part of that healing journey, being that, you know, you have fully forgiven.
Right. That's critical.
I think that if there is no forgiveness, that's a real telltale sign that you're not ready to go into anything. Because of course, then we know, you know, what tends to happen with that is, you know, you go into that next relationship with everything held here in mind. If I see a sign, then you know, that's it. You've already gone. You've gone in with that.
Gone.
Absolutely, right? And you just can't do that. You know, you can't hold the new person to your past. So I think a real first sign of that is that you have forgiven, and I think that's forgiving the person, forgiving the situation, forgiving yourself, right? I think also when you know for yourself that you are comfortable with you, right? Comfortable in terms of that, you know, you are satisfied in terms of just being with you. If you can't be with yourself for a period of time, no. You can't. You're not ready to go into a relationship. I think that turns into all sorts of things. If you're someone that is not comfortable being by themselves for any period of time or what have you, you know, you just got to be in a relationship, that's a telltale sign of something that's going to go very, very wrong. That turns into control, that turns into, you know, obsession, all sorts of things. So I think giving yourself the appropriate time for you. I don't think you can go on you know, a specific timing, but I think giving yourself, certainly from the last relationship that you were in, an appropriate amount of time, and really, you know, focusing on self. We started with that in terms of that the healing process of that, because, you know, regardless of how a relationship ended, you know, emotions don't just disappear, right? And also often in, you know, in relationships, it wasn't always bad. Do you know what I'm saying? So there's still a lot of, you know, that to kind of work through for me. And there was no time period on it for me, but for me, it was 6 years between my last relationship and what I'm in now. But as I said earlier, I'm just not one for I'm just not going to be dating this one and that one and this one and that one, and then I just think that the Lord can just say, okay, that I'm gonna give you permission to go ahead and let's explore this. I believe that's okay. So, you know, that's for me. But I think the forgiveness, knowing that you have forgiven, and as I said, all parties in that, including yourself, and knowing that you are okay, ultimately you are okay with you. I think that's when you can know. So I can, you know, I knew, you know, probably about a year or so ago that I was ready. I was ready to love again. Yeah.
But just have to wait.
That's it. That's it. That's it.
Yeah,
It's just the waiting in terms of that. And for me is I commit everything to God in prayer. And so yeah, it's like I said before, it's not that, you know, you're not wanting that and what have you, but I don't want anything out of God's timing.
That's true.
I ain't trying to help God with nothing.
Nothing.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
he can do that himself. But I think if you can think, I suppose maybe the other part of that is that, you know, I guess maybe someone that might watch this back might say, well, how do you know when you've forgiven, right? And so for me, I think that's about when you can think of that person, that situation, and nothing comes up in your heart. Oh, you've forgiven.
Yeah,
but if there is even an inch of
Any kind of emotion,
we're not there yet, we're not quite there yet, you know.
And it
And
happens
so
often, like, you literally wake up in the morning, one morning, and it's not there.
Perspective.
It's
absolutely
crazy.
absolutely
It's true. It's just gone.
absolutely
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, but you made a very important point. When you came to that place where you're comfortable, you're saying, look, Lord, if you bring someone, fine. If you don't, well, okay, I'm busy. I'm going to fulfill your call and your purpose, whatever in my life. And do. So then finally, okay, as you would say, someone came in and, yes, you let them in because you believe, well, this has to be God working in here. So because this is God working in here, do you sit back and just enjoy the ride, or you keep on your prayer carpet?
Oh no, my prayer intensifies. My prayer intensifies in that because I don't want to get swept along and this person I have
at the beginning
swept.
Yeah. I don't want to get swept along, right? In terms of emotions, and I am someone that pretty much keeps my feet on the ground. I'm not one of these people that kind of butterflies and what. God bless for all of those that have that, and I'm not taking anything away. I'm just not one of those. What's behind all of what's really kind of got? That's just me, right? So for me, it's even more. And I actually I met him through a blind date. So someone that I know very, very well. And to be fair, that's the only reason that I went, because of how much I know this person, how much I trust them, how much I know they know me. That's the only reason that I was like, well, what's the worst that can happen? And he said exactly the same thing when she asked him about going and what have you. And I was kind of, you know, I went into it with, I really got no expectations, because what's the word? I could, you know, we could end up having a very nice friendship. It could just be straight away, I'm not your cup of tea, you're not mine, or it couldn't be something more. So why not, kind of thing. And so, but going into that, what, you know, was immediate was the level of connection and alignment of values that we had. And so for me, that is an indication of, okay, again, like I said, let's not get swept up in here. My prayer has to intensify that. God, now there be this connection. But even in that, I don't want to get lost. So I need you to show me if there's anything that I could potentially become blind to, right? You show me that, you lead. And so, you know, this is forever at the top of my prayer in terms of what, you know, the the conversations, the every time we go out, God, what are you saying? I need to be able to hear you, because even I think ultimately what we need to remember is that even if God says to you, this is the person for you, and he tells that person, this is the person for you, I think we must understand that even in that, we have to remember each person has choice, has a will.
Yeah.
Right? I think sometimes we can get very caught up in, well, because God has said, then it has to be. No, baby, everybody has choice. I say it all the time that the greatest thing that we have, that God has given us, is salvation. And even with that, he says, this road leads to life. This road leads to death.
Yeah.
He says, I recommend that you choose life. However, you must choose. And so it's the same in every situation. And so even in what we will hear, even if you know that God is saying to you, this is him and what have you, that doesn't automatically then mean that you just relax now and sit back and to me, that your prayer has to intensify in that, because you've also got to know that within that, the enemy is going to come, there's going to be attacks, things are going to be heightened, and so you've got to make sure that you are kind of ready. But you because the Lord tells us something, again, as women, then you can be running ahead and what have you. No, I think there's timing and everything. We don't need to rush this thing. Do you know what I'm saying? It's been how long? I told you 6 years before that. So why would I then be okay? Well, is this? We should know within 6 months. What? No, it doesn't work like that. So yeah.
But you can have an idea in 6 months whether you want to continue with that person, especially in the earlier stages.
Oh no, I'm saying in reference to I know of women like that. I'm saying in reference to we should so there should be a ring. There should be a.
I got you.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. That's
I mean, it ties back with Ruth, as we mentioned in the book, in her obedience with Naomi, where Naomi is able to give her instructions and she's able to put herself out in place. And that was the catalyst for things to happen naturally.
Absolutely.
It happened naturally.
Absolutely.
She didn't have to force it. She didn't have to beg Boaz to come back and give her information or let her know what he's planning to do next. It just happened naturally. And I think that's something women need to be mindful. You don't have to force the guy to do what is in his heart. It happens naturally.
But even that, if you forced him, right, to whether that be to put a ring on the finger, whether that be to walk down the aisle, and why do you think that once you're married, you're not going to have to continue to force him?
Thank you. Yeah.
That's not gonna change. However this thing starts, and I think we need to be mindful of that, right? However this thing starts, it's not. I don't know. I don't know where that comes from. That there's some sort of illusion that we have that after marriage is going to be so different. So different. No. If he was mean before marriage, he's going to be mean after marriage. I don't understand.
Yeah,
that's it. And so again, it comes back to that thing of us really, really being, realistic. And maybe another question to put there, we asked the question about, asking ourselves about being ready, but also in terms of marriage, like, what is your understanding of marriage? What are your expectations for marriage? Right? Exactly. Because you may not share the same expectation. You may have two different views. I said earlier that for me, divorce is not an option. Oh no. But if you've never had that conversation with your potential partner, and they've gone into it that as well, just see how it goes, isn't it? Take a risk. No, not marrying anyone that's taking a risk. You've got to kind of be clear, all along the way in terms of things like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good place to kind of wrap up in terms of, you know, so people who are watching the recording, going back, it's all about, you know, kind of how to have good relationships, how to maintain them, and how to sustain them. I think there's a lot in maintaining relationships. And as the title of our session is, relationships and you. So you are very much the focus. You have to do some work. You
Absolutely
have to do the thinking and the reflecting. And as we said at the beginning, you know, it's about knowing self and are you ready? Are you ready for a relationship? Are you ready for marriage? Have you done all the internal cleaning in terms of baggage and excess, you know, the old experiences and so on? And I think that's a lot of that needs to happen first. You know, say for you, Tamika, it took 6 years before you was ready. You felt you was ready. For some people, it's taken 10 years. Some people it's taken a year. You know, your time is your time. You know, and it shouldn't be measured by anybody else. Your time and what God has ordained for you.
That's
so I think, in essence, it's, you know, it is about you fundamentally first of all, and then you can look at going into relationship and all the things that we've discussed this afternoon about, you know, making that choice, being intentional, communicating, learning another language, i.e. a love language, you know, compromising, having conversations, all those things, critical. And I can see, when I just said that out loud, I'm like, I can see why people stay single. That sounds like a lot.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
Wow.
Being in a relationship, the right relationship is obviously a beautiful thing. And as a married person, I can say that marriage is also beautiful when you're with the right person. And like, it shouldn't be an effort. You shouldn't be getting up and saying, him again. And you know, that you shouldn't think that you might have a moment of that because you're in a situation. That's not the default position every morning when you wake up. So I just think that people need to take time with themselves.
Definitely.
Time with others. And as you would say to me, guys, I know, and our, you know, Pastor Brian talked about, it's all about love, doing everything with love, as Christians are supposed to do that anyway. So that's my kind of wrap up of the session.
I think the one word that really hit me from beginning right down to the end is the word communication. Here you recognize how important it is to communicate, and that is a skill we even have to try to what's the word? We should try to nurture even while we're single, you know, and having friendships, you know, even with all around, just having friendship, just being able to learn how to communicate. And then the other aspect of it is that you get to choose who you go into relationships with. And that is also critical because that determines the longevity of the relationship.
Absolutely.
And the purpose that will come out of it as well. So we got to choose what it is we're doing. So we have to give thought. I thought it was very fruitful. And great. A lot will benefit from it.